Warm welcome to everyone. I'm very happy to see so many participants to this information session. Now, my name is Mark van der Hagen. I'm working for the European Climate, Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency, in short, CINEA, and it's my very pleasure to be here with you today. The European Sustainable Energy Week is organized by the Directorate General for Energy of the European Commission, as well as by CINEA. Now, with EUSEW, we want to provide a forum for all stakeholders and people interested in sustainable energy to share their views, to exchange ideas, and to build connections for the future. Next slide, please. Now, EUSEW is much more than a week event. It's a community that grows every year. And it was with real pleasure to see that the 2022 edition marked the comeback to a physical format of the conference after 2 years of only working in digital. And to see so many people on site this year in the sessions at the stand, it really gave an idea of how great and how dynamic and how enthusiastic the EUSEW community is. Next slide, please. Now, let's have a look at last year's edition's number. I think that's still on the next slide. Yes, we had more than 8,000 participants that took part in EUSEW this year on site and remotely from more than 120 countries. There were 5 plenary sessions, including the prestigious award ceremony, but also 37 policy sessions, seeing more than 280 speakers debating, bringing out solutions to advance the transition to clean energy. Now you can see on the screen the other impressive figures of last year's participation with, for example, the number of stands at the networking village and the numerous sustainable energy days that took place all around the world. Next slide, please. We strive to improve EUSEW every year, and in particular, taking into account the feedback that we received from the community. The survey we conducted after the 2022 editions showed clearly that participants come to the conference mainly to attend the policy sessions and to gather information from other key players in sustainable energy. Now, the networking opportunities were also well appreciated as the main novelty of last year's edition, a program that is structured around thematic blocks. Now, on the next slide, you will see that today's info session is about introducing you to the main features of next year's edition of EUSEW, and you can take an active part in the event by hosting a policy session, for instance, having a stand at the energy fair, running in the awards competition. And for this, we will provide you with more information on the different calls that we have planned for next year's edition. You can also see on the screen the agenda of this info session, and also for you to know that this session is recorded, and the recordings and the presentations shown today will be available on the EUSEW website by this Wednesday, 20 November, by tomorrow, in fact. I'm stopping here. So next slide is the last one. I'm stopping here, but not before giving you some indications on how to ask questions during the session. After each part of the agenda, as well as at the end of the session, we will stop and answer the questions that you asked in Slido. Now for this, you can either use the box next to the screen, or go to the www.sli.do, so www.slido, with the code EUSEW 2023 in one word. I wish you a pleasant and fruitful info session. And now it's time to hear Evelina Hartstein. She is acting head of communication and outreach unit in the Director General for Energy of the European Commission. Evelina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mark, and good morning to everyone. I have been asked to first explain to you in what kind of context we are devising the conference next year. It is quite a challenge to understand where we will be politically speaking, because as you know, 2022 has been already severely impacted by the war and the consecutive policy decisions and measures that we have undertaken, at least in the field of energy, in order to phase out our dependence on Russia. So our priorities in this geopolitical context might not be entirely different than this year, although we hope that there will be some more positive news, of course, to deliver. But we have still before 2022 worked under the big umbrella of Green Deal ambition to deliver on the clean energy transition and turn the EU in the long-term basis into a climate neutral continent by 2050. And this remains our overarching priority, but within which we needed to find a lot of flexibility and become an urgent actor of change on the energy transition theme. So here we are with our main priorities. As I said, stop the dependence on Russian fossil fuels to start with, as we have seen on a number of occasions throughout the past months, how Russia is able to turn energy into a weapon and a measure of political blackmail across the EU and elsewhere as well. We want to accelerate the clean energy transitions, and we, of course, always, and as I said, keep in mind that the climate crisis doesn't wait and doesn't change, and war actions even exacerbate the situation on the continent from that perspective. So there needs to be concerted actions on all those fronts. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. You will have also been familiar with the concept of Repower EU, which was our aggregate response and our precisely an attempt to have a concerted action on many fronts that will deliver this most important priority of shedding dependence on Russia. And it's composed of three pillars. First, acting on energy efficiency and energy savings. These are important and coupled measures, and we have a number of policy and legislative measures that have been adopted. We're working on the revision of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. We are reviewing together with co-legislators the Energy Efficiency Directive. And we devised a plan on saving energy, which composed of a number of work strands that are done at EU level, but also with member states to instigate, to spur people's interests and involvement in energy saving measures. Then the second element are renewables, and here we are talking about an important upscale of, in particular, solar and wind energy. And figures for 2022, the ones that we see until now are very promising, and we're very confident that by 2030, the landscape of our electricity generation in particular will be already significantly different. And finally, this comes with making sure that we keep having stable, secure flow of energy into the EU. We are working on the diversification of our energy supplies. Next slide, please. Some of you might be already familiar with this timeline, and this is an attempt to depict everything that has been undertaken since the energy crisis started. And just as a parenthesis here, we have been working on the important surge of energy prices already since pretty much October last year, or September, if one wants to go back even further. And so our response to the first energy prices spike, coupled with the situation imposed by us on us by Russia, makes it a very, very busy year, and it has turned it into a very busy year. And again, I'm sure you are familiar with most of the elements that you can see in this timeline. We remain cautiously optimistic that it will not end on the 22nd of November proposals. We are still looking ahead at the Special Extraordinary Council on the 13th of December. And we trust that member states are going to come to a decision and an agreement on the market correction mechanism that was put on the table by the Commission on the 22nd of November, which will also allow for a formal and final adoption of the proposals that have been already submitted on the 18th of October and 9th of November, for which a political agreement has been quote unquote met in the Extraordinary Council that took place on the 24th of November, but which still need the market correction mechanism to join them for them to be considered as a package. And we hope also that by the 19th of December, which is the date for the final but formal and long-term planned the energy ministers meeting, we will see also an advancement on many other files that are awaiting either a general approach in order to start trialogues or otherwise. Next slide, please. So in 2023, our planning is composed of a number of elements. As I mentioned before, there is the Green Deal umbrella work ongoing, and we are optimistic again that we will see the conclusion or at least an advancement on the many different strands of negotiations going on for the Fit for 55 package. You might remember there's a July package and the December 2021 packages, and they are all at the different stages of advancement, but we will see that 2023 will keep us busy with interinstitutional negotiations. We will also see the revision of the national energy and climate plans, and we will also work on the implementation of the recovery and resilience plans. Next slide. Amongst the new actions, we will definitely work closely. This work is already ongoing, but we will be coming up with a proposal on how to optimize the EU electricity market. And there is a number of other acts planned in the Commission work program and in our program, and that is cybersecurity of energy systems, carbon capture, utilization and storage, and eco-design and energy labeling for specific products groups. Finally, the 2023 has been announced by the President of the European Commission as the European Year of Skills. And in recognition of this fact, we have decided that the overarching theme for EUSEW 2023 will be accelerating the clean energy transition towards lower bills and greater skills. And this is under this chapeau theme that we will be inviting you to submit your policy proposals for the conference. I will stop here and I will hand over the floor to Raffaele.
Thank you very much, Evelina. Thank you very much indeed. I'm looking now at the Slido board. If you can go to the next slide, please. I'm looking at the Slido board, and well, I see that we have participants from almost everywhere in the world, from the Canary Island to Germany, to Cyprus, Scotland, Poland, and less exotic maybe, but also here in Brussels. There are not yet questions, but as we said before, we will stop at different moments of the info session to take your question on Slido and answer them. So please don't hesitate to put your question in Slido so we can know which one to answer. Now, moving on to the next part of the session. Next slide, please. My name is Raffaele Ferrando. I'm the coordinator of EUSEW, and I'm working for CINEA, the Agency for Climate Infrastructure and Environment. Before starting with the second point on the agenda, I would like to ask you a first question to all of you. It should appear now on Slido. The question is basically something quite generic. How will you be joining the European Sustainable Energy Week next year, so in 2023? In person, because you are in Brussels, in person because you're looking forward to traveling to Brussels, or digitally exclusively. While you take your time to answer the question, I will start on the main component of next edition of EUSEW. Next slide, please. So 2023 marks the 17th edition of the European Sustainable Energy Week, and it will take place from the 20th to the 22nd of June next year. So we will basically go back to the traditional month of the event, of the conference. On the first day, So on the 20th of June, there will be some plenary sessions, such as the opening session or the prestigious EUSEW Awards, which are celebrating Europe's champions in sustainable energy and renewables. We will also open the call. We will open the calls for the awards next week, but I will give you more information on this later this morning. The first day of the policy conference, we also see the fourth edition of the European Youth Energy Day, as well as a first batch of policy sessions, so organized by you or other stakeholders and services of the Commission. The second and third days will be dedicated to the policy sessions with a rich program of panels and debates on building a secure energy future in Europe. During the whole 3 days, there will also be the energy fair with physical stands. And last but not least, in the weeks and months prior to EUSEW, there will be hundreds of sustainable energy days all around Europe, like this year, but also beyond. And these will take place from March to June next year. Next slide, please. Let's now have a quick look before going through this slide. Let's quick look to the answers you gave to the poll. So how do you plan to join EUSEW next year? Almost half of you have replied in person because you're based in Brussels. A third of the respondents have replied in person too, but traveling from abroad, and around 20% digitally. Well, this is going into, well, towards the same idea we have to reinforce for next year the physical presence of participants at EUSEW and reinforce also the networking opportunities of participants. You will see that there will be other questions during this session, so don't hesitate to answer them on Slido when they appear in the Slido slide. In order to deliver successful event, we will work around 4 priorities. First, we will organize, like this year, the event in a hybrid format with both, like I said, a strong physical presence of participants and speakers, but also an online offer. We will make sure to honor also the title of the week by ensuring sustainability at all levels, like we did this year. We will also make sure that all together that sessions and activities are involving the different audiences and make use of as interactive as possible. And finally, the key to the successful editions of EUSEW in the past is collaboration. And this is a collaboration between us, the organizers, and you, the EUSEW community. Next slide, please. So next year's edition of EUSEW will be hybrid, like this year, with session and stands taking place in the Charlemagne building of the Commission, as well as on a virtual platform. More than this year, though, we aim for next year to make EUSEW again the networking place that it was before the pandemic, with many stakeholders coming on site to discuss and network. Next slide, please. For those of you who plan to apply for a policy session, we really want to insist to make sure to indicate how interactive the session will be and how you plan to ensure it. You can use tools like Slido for the online audience, but also to find interactivity within the room, the session room. Next slide, please. And about Slido, it's time to have a look at some question you may have now. As already said, the recordings of this session and the presentation that you're seeing on screen will be available, I think already this afternoon, but for sure tomorrow on EUSEW website. And we will publish all the questions that you will ask during this question, as well as the related answers by the end of the week, also on EUSEW website. I'm looking at the Slido board, and I see that there are some questions. There are some questions that I won't mention now because we will address them later. For example, what are the conditions for organizing a panel at the policy conference? Well, but I will go through quickly. Yes, all the questions that you have asked so far are will be answered later on, so I will take them later. Next slide, please. Let's now focus on the first 2 calls that have been published last week. So the call to host a policy session and the call to have a stand during EUSEW. So we decided this year to change a little for next year's edition, the way we proceed, and to publish already two calls, so the policy session one and the energy fair one, so that you could come to this info session with more concrete questions. Both the policy session and the energy fair will take place over the 3 days of EUSEW, like we said, so from the 20th to the 22nd of June. And if your proposal is retained, we will take care of all the technical and logistical aspect to make it happen. You, on your side, will take care of the content of the session, including inviting speakers and promoting the session to potential attendees. We will also value your feedback throughout the whole process and after EUSEW with a short report on your session. It is important to note, though, that given the reduced timing between the last edition of EUSEW that took place in September this year and the next one, which is in June 2023, there will be in 2023, there won't be any extended program in the week prior to the policy conference like we did this year and the year before. Finally, session will have a defined timing of 90 minutes for all, and all stands, we aim to have all stands on site. 2023, like Evelina mentioned, is also the European Year of Skills, and we encourage specifically a proposal tackling this topic. Next slide, please. So both calls are open to the same audiences. So both the energy fair, so to have a stand at EUSEW, and to organize, to host a policy session during the week. They are open to the same audiences. So on one hand, representative of European institutions, including interinstitutional bodies, and also organization and association that are working as multiplier and that are contributing to the development and implementation of sustainable energy policy. Some examples, but you will see all these examples in the guidelines of the calls that are in published online on our website. But for example, we are talking about, for these organizations, we are talking about European institutions and body or international organization. We're talking about consortia of European funded projects, but also national, regional, local authorities, agencies, public bodies, businesses, industry and professional associations, NGOs, citizens group, research innovation organization like research institutes, universities, etc. Because at the end of the day, EUSEW is a place to share knowledge and build connections. And in this view, applications that are including promotion of specific commercial product or services are not eligible. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, collaboration is at the core of EUSEW, and this is also valid for the application process, especially for the policy sessions. We ask organizations to submit joint applications with other organizations. However, for the sake of variety, only up to 2 proposals can be submitted by the same lead organizer. When you are preparing your application, please also pay attention to have the objectives of the session clear in mind, as that this will be one of the criteria to assess all proposals. The format of the session is really up to you. It could be a panel, it could be a debate, it could be a presentation, it could be a workshop, and we really encourage creative settings. But please pay attention that the proposal should adhere to the principle of gender balance and plurality of opinion. When filling in your application, please also detail the level of engagement of the speakers if they have been contacted yet. And this is what we really would like to do already at this stage when you submit your application, that at least the speakers have been contacted, and even better if they have confirmed their presence should your session is selected. I mentioned it earlier also, but we really ask applicants to include interactivity in their proposal of the session. And finally, in your application, make sure you will see in the application form, make sure to choose 1 or 2 of the specific themes for EUSEW 2023, the specific theme that best fits your session, your proposal. Next slide, please. So these specific themes, these thematic tags, these thematic blocks are, well, skills for the clean energy transition. You see them on screen now. So the first one is really related to next year, European year. Energy efficiency, renewables. The 4th tag or theme is ensuring affordability and inclusion in the clean energy transition. And finally, the 5th one is decarbonization policies and international cooperation. We will do our best to organize the program of EUSEW 2023 as we did this year. So by structuring it, structuring the sessions around these thematic blocks. But obviously, these 5 tags or topics that you see on screen could slightly change by next June. Next slide, please. The call for policy session will close on the 1st of February, and the call for energy fair will close on the 2nd of March. After the closing of the application period, our evaluator will screen all proposals and assess them to retain the best one, but also to ensure some variety in terms of topics and also in terms of organizers. For the call for the policy session, the main criteria are in front of you on screen now. So concept and focus, so basically the objective of your session, to whom it is addressed, and what is the format of the session, what are the interactive elements you plan to use, etc. Second criteria is the relevance of the topic, so basically the content proposed for the session, if it fits the European Sustainable Energy Policy agenda and the activities needed to deliver the clean energy transitions. Proposals should stress here what the session would bring to the policy debate, taking into account the main theme of EUSEW and the sub-themes that I mentioned before. And finally, the third criteria is the quality of the agenda, which includes the profile, the relevance, the lineup of the speakers, and the content they will deliver, plurality of the opinion, gender balance, and all these criteria. For this, like I said before, please make sure as much as possible that the speakers and the moderators that you indicate in your proposal have already accepted in principle to be part of the session during the possible dates. Next slide, please. About the energy fair, like I said, we aim to have all stands on site at the energy fair in Brussels, where participants will be able to meet each other, to book meetings, etc. The call, as I said, has opened last week, and it's running until the 2nd of March next year. Next slide, please. So here in a nutshell, the timeline of these 2 calls. Both calls have opened last week on the 22nd of November. The first one, the one for policy session, will close on the 1st of February. The second one, the one for energy fair, on the 2nd of March next year. The evaluation process will take place in February and March so that we can inform all applicants by the end of March. The idea is to gather all information from session organizers, retained session organizers, so the title, the description of the session, but also the list of speakers, the confirmed speakers, as well as from the stand holders, to get all this information by the 14th of April, so that we can open the registration to EUSEW and publish the program in the second half of April. And now, for the practical details on how to apply, I'm passing the floor to Robin Verland.
Everyone, good morning. So indeed, thank you, Raphael. My name is Robin, and I'm working at VIO, the contractor company supporting the Commission with the organization of the European Sustainable Energy Week for the 3rd year now. So in this section, I will briefly present you the new platform that we have developed in order to collect your applications in the different calls, those who have been open, as mentioned by Raphael, and those who will be open soon. So the name of the platform is interactive.eusew.eu, and if you are watching us live, you already know this platform as you are currently on it. It's a new platform. So for technical reasons, we had to reset the user database, which means that every one of you will have, or already did in the past week, have to create a new account, which can be done fairly easily. So, and I will just quickly walk you through this process. Next slide, please. So here, as you can see, in order to this is the home page of the platform, and in order to create a new account, you will have to click on the blue button, Register Now. As you can see, there are different places you can do that on the page, whether that be on the top right of your screen or the bottom left. So just have to click on Register Now, and this will lead you to the registration page. Sorry. Next slide, please. So here's the registration page, which is quite standard and basic. So you will be asked to enter your name, email, organization, and a few other details. And at the bottom of the form, sorry, you just have to click on register, and this is it. You will be registered and logged in. So next slide, please. Once you're logged in into your account, you will be able to see the different calls. So as you can see on the screenshot, and as mentioned by Raphael, at the moment we have two calls open, the call for policy session and the call for energy fair. Should you want to submit a application, you just have to click on the blue button, again, fairly straightforward, the blue button, new application, and this will lead you to the application form per se. So if you can go to the next slide, please. Then once you are on the application form, you will be asked to fill in a number of fields with relevant questions for the different calls. We won't go through all of the form, but here what you can see on the screen is the bottom of the form. And you can see there are two options. Either you want to save an unfinished application or you want to submit it directly. And on the left of the page, you can see there's some kind of a dashboard mentioning EUSEW codes and my application. So if you want to check the status of your application, just have to click on the My Applications tab, and this will lead you to a new page. If you can go to the next slide, please. So here you can see this is the case where you have saved the draft, and you have two options. You can either delete it by clicking on the trash bin icons to the left, I mean to the right, but the left option on the right. And should you want to continue further your application, you can simply click on edit, and this will lead you back to the form where you can either advance a little bit and save it again or submit it once it's done. And you can see there's also a reminder of the deadline. For example, for the call for policy session, you can see the deadline is on 1st February at midnight. Next slide, please. Here you can see how it's displayed when you have successfully submitted your application. And as you can see, the status is on green, submitted. That means that you have successfully submitted your application. You have nothing left to do. And of course, should you have any question at any point, there's always contact us for help option on the right of the page. Just have to click on it, and this will open a text box when you can send us an email, and we will be happy to address all of your questions. That is it. We try to make it as simple and intuitive as possible. But as mentioned, if you have any question, we'll be happy to address them. Sorry. And with that, I will conclude and give the floor back to Raphael. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Robin, for this and for all this walkthrough for the application form. I think we can move on. Let me see the next slide, please. Exactly. We can take already some questions. Well, there have been many more questions from in the last 10 minutes. We will try to address them, all of them. Some of them again are for later, but let's start already. So the first one is well, a comment and a question. We've been trying to organize a session at the policy conference for the last 5 years and never get selected. What are your tips to increase our chances? So the first thing is that we're very sorry that you haven't been selected in the last year, but we are really happy that you still trying, and we try as much as possible, and our evaluation team is trying as possible to give the floor at EUSEW to as many organization as possible in order to ensure variety and try as much as possible to bring new players from one edition to another. What are the tips? The tips, we will publish soon some tips on our blog on EUSEW website. In general, the tips would be what I presented before. So basically what matches the main criteria: to have, first of all, a topic, to come forward with a topic that really is in relation with the clean energy transition that the European Union is doing now. The second criteria is basically to fit in one of the sub-themes, the themes that I presented before. Third one is the panelists, the speakers. So basically a session, a proposal that can indicate already which speakers have confirmed their presence at EUSEW should this proposal be accepted, is a strong proposal. And then finally, the interactivity, the format of the session. These are all criteria that gives a good asset for application to be retained. Second question here. So there is this question: what are the conditions for organizing a panel at the policy conference? I think this was asked before the presentation of the call, so I believe this has been replied. Will the preference to organize a policy session be given to the projects that focus on skills? Yes and no. Yes, because it fits one of the 5 themes, but not only. Obviously, we won't have only sessions on skills, but definitely, since next year is a European Year of Skills, and definitely skills is one of the main element to the clean energy transition, this will also be valued. This is another question here. What will be involved in the Sustainable Energy Day? So this will be explained later. What is the ratio of acceptance of policy session application? Here, what we should look at is that there is a number of available slots for a session, and this number of available slot changes every year. This year we had 37 policy sessions out of hundreds of applications. We're trying as much as possible to make the 2023 edition bigger in terms of sessions that will be present during the week. But there is no specific number here. If we apply for a side event within the period March-June, can we also apply for a policy session and stand during EUSEW 23 in June? Of course. You can apply wherever you think you fit. So, for example, for a stand, for a session, to organize a session for Sustainable Energy Days, or even, and I will present this in a couple of minutes, for the awards. Can private companies apply to participate and have a stand at the energy fair? Totally. Private companies are welcome, but what we ask is that at the stand, there is no monetary exchange, or nothing is there to be sold. The stand is a place to inform about your services, about what you're doing, but not with a view of selling. I hope I'm clear here. We have best practices available for good interaction during policy conference sessions. So good interaction for policy conference session, you have 2 types of interaction. You have the interaction with the audience in the room, and you have interaction with the remote audience. With the remote audience, we have Slido, obviously, but we have other tools that are at your disposal. You can also come with your tools, and we'll see if we can accommodate it. But you can organize polls, you can organize questions, you can organize all of this for the remote audience. For the on-site audience, interactivity can be triggered clearly by question and answer with the audience, but also by involving directly the audience within the debate of the session. I think we will also have something on this on our blog in the coming weeks. Is it possible to include videos, graphics, and virtual tours in both digital and live presentation? Include videos for sure, include graphics for sure. Virtual tours, I'm not sure to understand what it means, but basically, what a session will look like, it will be, I mean, depending on what your ideas, but if you came this year to EUSEW, you may have seen that we have an audience on site, the speakers are on site, some of them were remote. You can have a presentation like we're showing now on screen, you can have videos, you can have a virtual tour, you can also connect in live with somebody if he or she wants to do a tour of, I don't know, of a lab, or I don't know what the idea here is, but definitely, yes, in addition to Slido, obviously. How can we put ourselves forward to join a relevant panel at the policy conference? So here the thing is that what we try to do as much as possible is that organizations connect to each other and try to team up to propose an application. So I believe that there is no place to put forward John, but if I were you, I would use social media. I would contact different organizations to see if they are planning to also organize a panel in order to find partners here. Can European EU associated countries apply to host a policy session? Definitely yes, but here you will see in the guidelines, you will see in the application form, you need to team up with other organization. You cannot just it cannot be only one applicant or one entity applying. It's a team. It's a team effort. You have to go to team up with other organizations. At least one of these organizations should be in the European Union. Who are the evaluators? How are they selected and by whom? Is there any special survey asking call for experts? So the evaluation is done internally at the Commission by our experts on the different topics that we put forward during the week. So basically what I presented before, there is no special survey, it's really done internally by the Commission services and our experts. Are you providing us with tools like Slido, or do we bring out our own tools that work for an online and offline audience? So the thing is that we work in two steps. The first step is really to understand what type of interactivity, what type of a session you want to organize. Based on that, especially if you are retained, if you are selected, then we will have our team of a contractor, Robin and his colleagues will get in touch with you to understand exactly your needs and how they can support. Obviously, for Slido, just to take an example, Slido, this is something that we put at your disposal, definitely. The deadlines for application, so for the energy fair and for the policy session. The policy session, the deadline is the 1st of February. The deadline to apply for the energy fair is the 2nd of March. I think I'll stop here and take the other question later, just so we can move on with the presentation. There are a lot of questions. If a question is not answered today, we will, in any case, reply it and put it in the document that we will share by the end of the week. So moving on, next slide, please. Yeah, that's still me. So the process to apply to the awards is the same as what Robin presented before. So on our interactive website, you'll see the different calls. One of the calls, when it will be open, it will be the awards, and there the application is the same, exactly the same process. The EUSEW Awards competition highlights the success of projects and activities, as well as individual and collective actions in the field of energy efficiency and renewable energy sources. The call to apply for EUSEW Awards will open next week, next Tuesday on the 6th of December, and it will close on the 9th of February. There will be 3 categories. Innovation, you see them on screen now, innovation, local energy action, and women in energy. Innovation, the innovation category recognizes outstanding EU-funded projects that show an original and innovative path towards the clean energy transition. The second category, the local energy action, recognizes an implemented sustainable energy action driven by a group of citizens, consumers, which contributes to the clean energy transition at the community level. And finally, the women in energy category, well, it speaks for itself, but it recognizes women who lead outstanding activities that help to advance the clean energy transition in Europe. And here, a particular attention is placed in the efforts in driving the women mainstreaming agenda through and equality and equal opportunities in the energy sector. But now let's have a look, a closer look at each category. Next slide, please. So this is the innovation category. The innovation category is open to EU-funded project, ongoing or concluded, finished after the 31st of December 2021, and which activities are carried out in at least one of the countries located in the European Union or in the European Economic Area. Next slide, please. For the Local Energy Action Award, this category is open to association, organization, groups of people whose activities are carried out in the same area as for the previous category, so in the EU or in the European Economic Area. Finally, next slide, please. The third category, which is the Women in Energy Award. This is open to women, obviously, whose activities are carried out in the field of sustainable energy. An applicant should be resident in one country located in the EU or the European Economic Area. The applications are individual, so we won't accept group applications or application for groups of women, but just one person per application. And this application can be submitted by the person itself who wants to compete in the awards, but also by somebody else who will then nominate the person they think deserves this Women in Energy Award. Next slide, please. So after the closing of the application period, our experts, so we have a technical advisory committee, they will screen all proposals and assess this proposal with the following criteria in mind: concept, implementation, and impact. So concept is basically why the activity or the person is a best-in-class example in their field. Here you should focus on highlighting the elements of originality that will drive change towards the clean energy transition. Second criteria is the implementation, so how the project or the person translates the concept previously described into action. All actions should be clearly described and feasible. And for the category focusing on people, so the Women in Energy Award, the profile and background of the nominated person should be discussed in relation to the activity put forward. Finally, the third criteria is the impact. So what are the impacts of the activities described and the positive contribution to the European energy and climate targets? For the Women in Energy Award, for the Women in Energy category, applicants should further elaborate on the impact of the activity on mainstreaming, gender equality, and promoting equal opportunities. Based on the evaluation of the members of our technical advisory committee, there will be a high-level jury. This high-level jury will shortlist the most promising candidates per category. And then we will have, there will be a filming crew that will visit the location of the finalist activities and conduct interview with key actors to be featured in EUSEW communication and platform. 3 finalists for each award. These 3 finalists will be invited to participate in the award ceremony that will take place in June in Brussels and in the presence of European Commissioner for Energy, Kadri Simpson. Next slide, please. So here you see a summary of a walkthrough of the application form. The process, as I said, is exactly the same as what Robin presented before for the other 2 calls, Energy Fair and policy sessions. So basically, you need to create a user account or to log in with the one you have and focus the application on 5 main parts. First, the summary of your application, then the concept, like we discussed before, the implementation of the concept, the impact of the project or the individual activity, and then add some evidence, some documents that support the application, so that our evaluator can have concrete examples of the different applications. Next slide, please. So here you have the timeline for the call for awards. So the call will open next week on Tuesday, 6th of December, with a view of closing it on the 9th of February. We will then go through the evaluation process in February, March, with a view to inform all the applicants by April and opening the public vote, the online public vote at the end of May, and then the award ceremony will take place in June during EUSEW. Next slide, please. So it's time now to take another set of questions. I'm just looking at the Slido, and I see. I'm looking at the different question. So I see a question here more on the content. I see a question that's could you explain what you mean by skills? For this, I'd like to call in maybe Martin Eibel, who could maybe give us some lights on this.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Super. Hi. Good morning to everybody. Martin Eibel, also working in CINEA in the live clean energy and live climate unit, managing the live program here, and we are supporting Raphael and his team with the EUSEW every year. On the skills, I mean, this is really up to you. It's obviously it's wide. It could be upskilling of workers. It could be reskilling. Of workers. It could be also skills maybe for householders to manage higher energy bills, to identify what they can do. So that is pretty much open. What is clear is that you should really focus on a subject when you think about skills, and that you bring in the right stakeholders here as well, which are involved in the debate. What you need to convey there in your policy session.
Thank you very much, Martin. Moving on with another question. Can we have more than 2 applications if we are not the lead organization? I'm bringing you back here, Martin.
Yeah, I think the guidelines on the website as well are really saying that you should not be more in 2 applications. There's a reason for that. We do want diversity, and we do want to engage a broad range of stakeholders as much as we can. There was a question or a remark more that an organization applied 5 times and wasn't in. There is a competition, of course, because the EUSEW is the place where we try to engage with in the debate about sustainable energy policies, clean energy transition. So of course, a lot of people want to participate, and of course, from our side, we want to give a very, very we want to engage as many stakeholders as possible which are involved in the clean energy transition. So in that sense, it would be good that you put your money on only a few horses and make very compelling applications. And we, from our side, always try to bring in as many stakeholders as we can. So the answer to the question is really, as it's also stipulated on the website with the guidelines, that you should not be in more than 2 applications.
Thank you, Martin. Another question. Are the assessors of policy sessions application coming from the European Commission DG Energy? Yes, as well as from our agency, CINEA. We put up a task force here who will evaluate, assess all the applications.
Yeah.
How many stands
Sorry, Raphael.
Please, Martin, go on.
For transparency reasons, I mean, we do get support from external evaluators who are looking at the sessions. And sorry, I hope it's not too noisy because I've got construction works next door. Sorry. We do have support from evaluators who are looking at the sessions, at the merits, how you present that. So there are external evaluators. However, there's also a second step. Again, as I said before, we do want to make sure that we have a good variety and mix of stakeholders involved in the policy sessions. And that's a kind of jigsaw, which we also try to support from the side of CINEA and DG Energy.
Thank you, Martin. How many stands are available? What are the available sizes and costs related to this? We are still trying to organize the space for next year's energy fair. This year we had physically we had more than 30 stands, and the space was basically a high chairs, a table, and space behind for a roll-up. We also provided a screen, and that's it. What are the costs related to this? Nothing. If you have, for example, already some material at your disposal, for example, there will be, most probably will do the same as this year. So there will be a space for you to put a roll-up. If you don't have a roll-up, well, you will have to produce it, and the cost will be related. The costs are on you. But otherwise, everything that we put in place ourselves is free for you. Is it possible to present several projects on one big stand? I think so. I think it is possible. It's all a matter of basically, it's a bit hand in hand with the question before. It's a matter of space that will be available, and this is something that we're still working on. But definitely, I think it's possible to present several projects. Yes. The only limitation here I see is the number of people, stand holders at the same time at the stand, but this is a matter of organization within the stand holders. Can we already register for the 2020 June in Brussels? No. We will launch the registrations together with the program, the official program, at well, if I remember well, it will be in late April. What is asked to define by applicants on the side of interactivity? I did not have the time to read the slide. So again, here it is in the guidelines. We will also publish a blog entry on this. But interactivity basically is to make participants at the session involved in the session as such. So it could be, for example, just what we are doing here during this info session, so giving the floor to participants to ask questions. It can be, you can organize polls. You can, I mean, sky's the limit here for the interactivity. But we believe that interactivity is key to a success session. Can we select a preferred day to organize a policy session? It is not part of the application form, no. If there is a real reason that you want to organize a policy session on a specific day, on a specific part of the day, please indicate it in your application, but without guarantees that will be especially taken into account.
Maybe,
yes,
Raffaele, if I may add here to your comment as well, that the deadline for submitting your policy session application is in February. So we also try to look at the evaluator sessions and then try to compose a program. And of course, as was mentioned before, we have several kind of thematic blocks in the European Sustainable Energy Week now. And we'll try to cluster also these thematic sessions a little bit, so that in terms of the timing will depend a little bit then how many sessions we get for a thematic block and how we are structuring the program. However, you will definitely get to know very much in advance when we would allocate you a slot in the conference program. So that should be hopefully around March time, you should know. So that would be 3 months in advance, which should be hopefully also sufficient time for you and your speakers to put that date in the agenda.
Martin, I see 2 questions that you may want to take too. The first one is, does the 2 applications per organizer apply to all applications, example for policy session and energy fair and side events, or does it refer only to the policy session application? And together with this, there is another question. You should not be in more than 2 applications. Do you mean as lead organizer or both as lead and co-organizers?
Yeah. First question, whether to apply either or for the policy session or energy fair. I mean, these are 2 different application processes, and you have to submit an application for a policy session or an application for the energy fair or for the Sustainable Energy Day or for the award. So these are different applications, so you can do that. You can have or participate in a policy session and you can also have a stand at the energy fair. So that is definitely possible. However, as I said before, we try to have diversity and give a space for everybody. So that also depends on the appetite and the number of applications we get for all. I mean, I would say yes, please apply, and we'll try to accommodate as much as possible. In the two, whether you could be more than 2 applications for the policy session. For the policy sessions, I mean, again, if you look at the guidelines on the website, I mean, we specifically say that you should really select your applications where you want to participate, and we really say that you should be an organization can be the lead or co-organize in a maximum of 2 joint applications in order to ensure diversity across the sessions. This is also an objective to ensure that you're fully committed to a session, and that you really put a lot of effort in one application rather than 5 or 10. So in that sense, I think the guidelines are clear.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you very much, Martin. While we're taking a couple of more questions, I see that my colleagues have published a new poll for which of the awards categories could you immediately think of a nominee. As we said, we have three categories: innovation, local energy action, and women in energy. Moving on.
Maybe Raphael, if I can
please
also come in with one clarification on the energy fair. The energy fair is supposed to give space for organizations involved in the clean energy transition. And as you rightly pointed out, I mean, it's not a commercial fair. It's not for selling products, but it's more to show the advancement of solutions, you know, for the clean energy transition, which probably need more take up in the market. So we look here also rather at innovation. If you are a private company and you have got a very innovative solution, for example, that could be something which we might be interested in the energy fair. We might not be so much interested if you're a company and you are already selling for the last 30 years your product and to feature it there. So in that sense, when you do your application for the energy fair, we have award criteria, and you need to make your case then why this is really interesting for the EUSEW audience and why you should be featured there, and use the space to explain why your product or why your solution is really highly relevant, or why it's innovative. So that would be very important for your application.
Thank you, Martin. Other question here, how many policy sessions there will be in total? We still don't know. What we know for sure is that we will do our best to have more than what we had in 2022. So we will try to have between 40 and 50 sessions during the week, in addition to obviously the plenary session. Other question, are hybrid policy sessions encouraged? Yes, now we should define what a hybrid session is. By a hybrid session, what we would say is that it's a session that as a viewer, as a participant, the experience is more or less the same for whether you are online or on site. We, in any case, try to have as many speakers as possible on site, but it's true that it's possible. It will be possible to have speakers also remote. I'm just looking at other questions. Maybe another one for you, Martin. Who can apply for the awards? Can it be a city applying for the local energy action, for example?
I think yes, it can be. I would just tell you, read carefully the guidelines, because in the guidelines we really specify what we are looking for. but in principle, it's open. It could be an energy community group, it could be a city, it could be citizens with the local authority together. You have to make your case in the application form, but really always, as always, read the guidelines, read what we are looking for, and that should give you enough information to write a compelling application.
Thank you, Martin. There is also this question, can EU associated countries participate in all aspects of the conference, including awards and presentation booths, Martin?
I think they can, EU associated countries can definitely participate in the policy conference, so you can submit an application with the guidelines which Raffaele already reiterated a few times. You can also organize an sustainable energy day, for example, in your local area. That would be definitely something nice, and we give you visibility through the EUSEW platform on what you're doing there. And also for the energy fair, in principle, there's no limitation. There is a limitation for the use of awards, as far as I understand, because that is focused on Europe, so the 27 member states and the EEA countries, basically. So, but for the policy session conference, yes, definitely, and maybe just as a tip, make sure that when you participate and team up with other players, that you also look in how your debate is advancing the clean energy transition in Europe, and how your work there in the neighborhood countries are contributing, or how this is related to the European clean energy policy.
Thank you, Martin. I'm going to take two more questions, I think, and then move on. How many people will be present per session? That's really difficult to say. What I can tell you is the numbers we had this year for EUSEW 2022. So that took place at the end of September. We had overall more than 8,000 participants during EUSEW. The majority was online. We had sessions. Let's say the most successful session had more than 1,000 participants combined, online and on site. Now, on site, we are obviously limited by the number of spaces of seats, but it really depends from one session to another. And we really encourage everyone to come and to look and to live EUSEW on site.
You pointed quite nicely out before that this is a networking event. I mean, apart from learning and looking at solutions and good practices, and also listening to a diverse range of views on how we can accelerate the clean energy transition in Europe, there is really a big networking component. And before the Corona pandemic, we had between 3,000 and 4,000 people on site. As far as I remember, and I think that's where we are aiming at again, to make it really a networking event, and an event where people can meet and exchange on ideas physically.
Thanks, Martin. Going back to the poll that was running for which of the awards categories could you immediately think of a nominee? The highest number of voters here went to local energy action, then followed by innovation, and then, but it's quite it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So it's a good representation. It's a good mix. About the awards, what we encourage really is great projects and actors to apply. And if you don't think that you could apply, we really rely on you to spread the word, because if you think about someone or a project, a person, a woman who does fantastic projects or fantastic activities in the field of clean energy transition, then we were more than grateful if you could spread the word and suggest these people. I think I'm stopping here for the moment. We'll take the more question afterwards too. And now I think it's time to know more about the Sustainable Energy Days And for this, I pass the floor to you, Elena.
Thank you, Raffaele. I'm delighted to be with you today. For the ones who don't know me, my name is Serena Valdez, and I am the EUSEW Secretariat Coordinator. And I would like to give you another idea of how you can be part of EUSEW 2023, for example, by organizing a Sustainable Energy Days. Next slide, please. So Sustainable Energy Days are local events happening across the world, and they can be online or physical. For instance, if your organization is hosting an award ceremony, organizing a panel, delivering a talk, you can register all those events as all those events as a Sustainable Energy Day. Other examples of Sustainable Energy Days are organizing bike rides, workshops in schools to, for example, teach children and teenagers about circular economy, energy savings, and other tips and tricks to contribute to the clean energy transition. Or especially considering next year as the European Year of Skills, maybe your organization is interested in training or upskilling people so they can be ready for the clean energy transition. I will put in the chat later so you can see some examples for last year, but we will also create a toolkit that will be at your disposal to help you to spread the word and promote your event as part of EUSEW. These events will be added to EUSEW website and place it in a map you can see in the photo. As also Raffaele mentioned, yes, these dates these days will take place between March and June, and we will open the call on the 14th of February next year. So please stay tuned and register your event as a Sustainable Energy Day. It's your opportunity to be part of EUSEW. So without further delay, I will pass the floor to my colleague, Violeta. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Elena. And yes, I'm Violeta Meoto, and I am the social media and community manager for EUSEW. And next slide. We are, of course, very, very happy to have you here, but also to have seen you again on site this last edition. But as we all anxiously wait to meet, in the meantime, the EUSEW online presence, but also your online presence are key in digital times and in a hybrid event. So the digital dimension is what will make the whole build up to the EUSEW week also a conversation in this realm. So of course, important starters of this conversation are our partners, who are, as we like to say, not only key stakeholders and multipliers of EUSEW, but also of sustainable energy initiatives, and more broadly, the key stakeholders that are advancing the EU Green Deal and Repower EU. As we like to say, EUSEW is not just a week, so we want to reinforce the community dimension. And this year, these are the partners featured that you can check out. You can, for example, follow their work, check out the list in Twitter that we have, seeing their latest updates, follow the list, see what our digital ambassadors are talking about. And also soon you will be able to read their contributions on the EUSEW blog. Normally they talk about their latest endeavors or ideas as well. And particularly for media partnerships, I wanted to make a special point because you should definitely keep an eye on their offers that will appear in our newsletters, communications, and in the context of EUSEW at the event as such. But there's also the possibility, for example, if you're a freelance journalist, to receive materials to cover EUSEW independently. And you will find our media team's direct email at the end of this presentation if you wish to do so. And my favorite part, of course, regarding social media, you are, of course, very much invited to follow our accounts. We will also be sharing relevant discussions on policy, on clean energy, not only from the EUSEW community, but of course from DG Energy, from CINEA, from different accounts that are involved in this also internationally. And we will be happy to share your content as well. So please use the hashtag, tag us, and this is how we can see your posts, we can find you easily, we can interact with you. There is also, of course, the newsletter. I just mentioned it, and the blog. I'm sure many of you are subscribed if you're here today. EUSEW with this not only aims to inform you about the event and of course upcoming calls, but also really to provide topical content and significant information for you and your work. So finally, the general promotional toolkit, you see there the 1st of December as the date. It will be ready next week. This is for all of you that are super enthusiastic about sharing, your news and your work or endeavors around sustainable energy while engaging with EUSEW. But if you want to engage, of course, in another capacity, for example, when you are a sustainable energy door organizer, as Elena was explaining, or a policy session organizer, you will, of course, then receive specific materials to also promote, for example, an energy day in your city or a policy conference session at the EUSEW week. So I think for now, this is all on my side, and I'll hand the floor back to you, Raffaele, to see if we have some more questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Violetta, and thank you very much, Elena. It's time to take another set of questions. So the first one here, is there a minimum number of partners you need to submit to the joint proposal? I'd like to bring in Talia, maybe to answer this question. Talia, are you with us? If not, Martin? No, then I think that there is an issue with the microphone here, so I'll take it.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, go, Martin.
Okay. I wanted to say, or I did say, but apparently muted, that there is a guideline on how many participants there should be in a policy session as speakers, but also how many organizations should apply. So I think we said a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 5 organizations, and the type of organizations is also given their list on the type of organizations we accept basically in the guidelines. I think important is really when we look at the policy sessions that we prefer sessions that are diverse, that have a range of views, that are really a debate, and which are interesting for the audience and to follow. So I think these are definitely recipes also for a successful application, that you bring in a range of stakeholders and that you have a real debate of views on the clean energy transition. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Thanks, Martin. Other questions here. Will there be only 3 prizes or more will be added? There will be in 2023 only 3 prizes as part of the call for awards. So the innovation category, innovation prize, the local energy action prize, and the women in energy prize. Are there translation services available in order to increase participation in virtual session? We don't plan to provide translation interpretation services for policy session. However, if this is something very important for you, please flag it in your application form. Here, a question slash comment slash recommendation. I think, why not a single deadline for all application? May be easier to remember than several. Totally agree. I think that we should definitely aim to having things clear and simple. Now, we are in a transition this year. We've been in transition the last years already, more in terms of formats of event, from a conference that took place only physically to something much more hybrid after the pandemic. Here we're going back to the traditional month of June, traditional month of EUSEW, as in the past years. But the last event, the last edition of EUSEW took place at the end of September. So we are working within really a tight deadline, tight timeline this year for next edition, and we basically put the deadlines at different moments just to ensure that on one side our evaluation team can have the time to process and assess everything, but also to give the maximum time for applicants for each call. Another question here: what does the award entail? Is there a symbolic physical award? Yes, definitely. It is basically awardees will receive basically trophy and a certificate informing them that they have won. Martin, do you want to say something more here?
The top one from Federico, dropping an idea. Why don't you create an additional award for the best local energy day? Very good idea. We will look into it, Federico. And we always like, suggestions and ideas. So if you have anything, please always let us know. If you attend the EUSEW and you have a comment afterwards, always use the feedback forms. We're always eager to improve and to make the event, as much compelling as possible for you who are attending. Do you have information on the participants of the policy conference? The composition of the attendees to the policy conference usually is really a mix. So these are normally practitioners involved in the clean energy transition. So that means this could be consultants, local authorities, regional, national authority representatives. That could be universities, research institutions. That could be industry, SMEs that are providing solutions and products within the clean energy transition. NGOs, interest groups, associations. It's a whole mix. So I mean, in principle, the European Sustainable Energy Week is the event, if you like, in Europe, where we bring together all the relevant stakeholders in the debate for the clean energy transition. Can ministries apply as a co-organizer? Yes, they can apply. No limitation for that. EU regions, of course, EU regions are also a very important player in the whole clean energy transition. So I can only encourage you to apply. Again, I mean, just a reminder. Look at the guidelines, look at what we are looking for the policy session in terms of interactivity, diverse, pluralistic views, and so on. But of course, EU regions can apply. Matchmaking meetings on site, Raffaele, that I give to you because I'm not quite sure about this one.
Yes, so we will try to indeed have matchmaking meetings on site. The plan is indeed to get in touch. I will show you later on the different ways to get in contact with us for the logistics, but definitely this is something that can be done by contacting us. I see that our colleagues put also a link to the different examples of sustainable energy days. Martin, do you want to come in for the question on the Youth Energy Trailblazers?
I think if you can do that, that would be good, and I'll take the next one.
Sure, yeah. So basically, we have organized the youth, and I mean, because of the timeline, we wanted to focus really on some specific awards. And what we will do also is that we will have a specific program for young people, but we won't organize a specific award prize for the Youth Energy Trailblazer next year. Next one, Martin, if you can take it.
Yes, in terms of the awards, can it be individual submissions by organization companies, or you prefer joint applications involving several partners, if from industry? Of course, it can be from a single organization, of course. I mean, or it could be multiple. I mean, I think if you put more stakeholders, maybe you make your application more compelling, but minimum is one, and that's also acceptable. We look at the application in terms of its merits and in terms of the award criteria. So in principle, with one organization applying, it can be already a very compelling application, but it's up to you if you're co-working on something, for example, on an innovative technology for the innovation category. Yes, you may apply also as a group of organizations if you like.
Regarding matchmaking meetings on site, we still need to liaise with the EUSEW team for the logistical once approved. Yes, these should be taking place at the stand or in a separate room. At the stand, yes, we are looking into options also to have separate rooms, and we'll keep you updated on this. In view of the number of project representatives at the stand, indeed, yes, this is something important to keep in mind. Last question here, is it possible to propose hybrid events and what kind of support there will be? So it's possible to propose hybrid events for the policy sessions. Definitely, yes. The kind of support there will be is for anything that's technical on the technical side. Hybrid events as part of Sustainable Energy Days, this is something that you should organize on your side, and we add them to the list of Sustainable Energy Days with all the visibility and the promotion that goes around that. Before starting the last part of this info session, it will be very short, I would like to ask you one last question of our polls. What are you most interested in getting involved in for next year? So is it organizing a policy conference session, exhibiting at the Energy Fair, hosting a Sustainable Energy Day, or nominating or taking part for the EUSEW Awards? While you vote for what you're most interested in, I will go through the next slide, please, and the next one, and look at the timeline of this year. So this goes a bit hand in hand with the comment of why don't we have one single deadline for everything? Well, we have different deadlines for the reasons I mentioned before. We are this year transitioning from an event that took place last September to an event that will take place in June. So we have around 9 months to organize everything. So it's quite short in comparison to previous years. So in November, we already opened 2 calls, the first 2 calls for the policy sessions and for the Energy Fair. And we are doing the info session today, as you can see on the slide also. The call for awards will open next week on the 6th of December. And then we move to the next to next year. In February, there will be the deadline to apply for policy session on the 1st of February, as well as to apply for the awards on the 9th of February, the week after. And in February, we will also launch the call to register for your Sustainable Energy Day. This will open on the 14th of February. March will then be the month for the evaluation of application for policy session and stand, for which for the Energy Fair, the call closes on the 2nd of March. And this is also the month when Sustainable Energy Day will start until the end of June. Things will get much busier in April with a deadline for session organizer and stand holders to send their material and content to the organizing team. This is also when we will know the finalists of the awards, and we will open registration and publish the program of EUSEW 2023. In May, we will prepare everything for the event to take place and launch the public votes for the awards. And we will very quickly hit June with EUSEW 2023 taking place from the 20th to the 22nd. Next slide, please. We will take a few minutes, in a few minutes, the last question of the day. But before, here are the main email addresses where you can contact us. So you have the all finish with the eusew.eu. The first one, conference, is everything that's related to the policy conference. Networking, everything that's related to the Energy Fair, but also the question if you want a room, a meeting room. We're still exploring this option, obviously. Awards, for everything that's related to the awards. Energy Days for the Sustainable Energy Days. Media for any media partnership, but possible media partnership or media inquiries. And finally, registration. This is something that we will manage later on, but this is everything that's related to the registration and the participant inquiries to EUSEW. Let's see quickly the answer to the poll of today, the last poll. So the question was, what are you most interested in getting involved in EUSEW 2023? So the vast majority of you in this session are here to organize mostly a policy conference session, and then follows the Energy Fair and the Sustainable Energy Day, and very limited number for the awards. Let's now look at the last batch of questions in the chat, in the Slido. Just also to repeat, also what we presented before, and what also my colleague Martin mentioned before, for especially for the policy conference, what we encourage is proposals, application that have a pertinence, a relevance in terms of policies, so that are tackling the clean energy transition. The second point is really the originality, not only on the format of the session, but also on the topic, on the theme. We have noticed, as you can imagine, in the last years, that we often sometimes get many applications on a specific theme. So here, originality is also key. The third point is really to organize a policy debate. The format doesn't have to be a debate, but the outcome should be a debate representing different views of the sectors towards according to a specific topic. And finally, a key to a successful application here is also, like we were saying before, to have a kind of mature agenda. So with a clear lineup of speakers that have confirmed, at least in principle, their presence at EUSEW, but also a clear show flow of what will be presented and how. Looking at the questions here, is there EU funding available, for example, through the Fit for 55 program, so that local stakeholders, grassroots, and civil society groups can participate in the Sustainable Energy Days and cover their expenses? I'm not an expert on this. Martin, do you want to come in?
I think, if I understand right, from the EUSEW organization itself, we do not have the budget to support the travel costs, accommodation costs for participants and speakers as such. Of course, if you apply in the framework of, for example, your European funded project, then you can discuss with your project officer if costs are eligible. Often they are, but you need to definitely discuss it with your project officer of the program. Otherwise, I mean, if there are severe problems, I don't know, Raffaele, is it worthwhile dropping an email to the conference organizers if there is a severe need? Or I don't think we do have a budget as such. Is it correct?
We don't specifically, and yeah, indeed, if funded are needed for, especially for your projects, this should be part of the grant agreement, and it's not EUSEW as an organizing entity doesn't provide funding, specific funding on this. No. Next question here. As I understand, our Energy Days will receive more information later, right? Right. We plan to open the call for Sustainable Energy Days in mid-February, and this is when the full range of guidelines and application form will be published, where you will have much more information about getting informed of what EUSEW is proposing, about the calls, about the result, etc. Our main channels for communication are the newsletter, and for this we really encourage you to subscribe to the newsletter. I don't know if my colleagues can put a link in the Slido, but in any case on the website it's quite clear where to put your email address to receive our newsletter, so you get informed. And a second way is definitely to follow us on social media. Here, how about the registration of the conference between 20th of June? When and where can we register for this? So we will open the registration later in 2023, when we will have a stable program and an idea of who the stands holders will be. So this is something that will be published in April, and the possibility to register will also be at that time. I think that's it for the question on the Slido side. As we said different times during this meeting, the recordings of this info session, as well as the slide set, the presentation that you've seen, will be available on EUSEW website this afternoon already, I think, and the list of questions that you have put in the Slido and corresponding related answers will be available also on the website of EUSEW by the end of the week. Again, EUSEW is more than an event, more than a campaign. It's a community, and what we really want to achieve for the 2023 edition is to have this community more present during the event, but not only during the event physically in Brussels, but also before the event. And for this, we really count on you to help us spread the word about EUSEW, about the different calls, about when the registration, the program will be available, but also if you have ideas like we had some today in the slide, or if you have like things that you think should change, please don't hesitate to contact us, because that will be a way to change and to improve EUSEW for the next years. On behalf of the organizing team of EUSEW, from SINEA, from DG Energy of the European Commission, and our contractor VEO, I thank you very much for your participation today in this info session, and wish you a nice rest of the day, as well as good luck for your application. Thank you very much.